Welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We're your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
I Create Daily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. I Create Daily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another coffee break episode on the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora.
And today we are talking, coffee breaks are where we have quick conversations together about topics for creators and what's on our mind. And today we're talking about decluttering, which is a great topic since the day that we're recording this, or the time frame that we're actually recording this, is spring of 2019. And so we're all in the spring cleaning mode, at least we are. And many people associate spring with clearing out. So let's go.
And we're only several years behind on our spring cleaning.
But nobody has to know that.
Well, we've been so busy and focused on our business building and all the creative endeavors that we've been building, so we've been letting it go too long.
We've been doing spring building for a long time.
Right, spring building. So yeah, there are definitely some closets that need airing out there, and looking forward to getting to those. We're already in the process. So yeah, this came up because a member in our community had emails bouncing. And so, not everyone, like we forget sometimes because we're always online and, in the digital space kind of thing, that's where our business lives, basically. And so we forget that not everyone is as savvy at using, whether it's the social channels, knowing what they are, Facebook, even email.
Or just even online as much.
Exactly. So we had...
People have lives off the internet.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So basically one of the things that, having come from now being a baby boomer generation, in fact, turning 60 next week or so, in a week, I guess.
No way.
Yeah, right. I grew up with, in my corporate world, the kind of concept of being organized and, efficient and having everything like, my file folders originally even used to be typed with labels. In other words, the labels for my file folders even used to be typed.
And I remember you were the very quintessential organized person.
Yeah.
Like if you see our house now, you wouldn't know.
You didn't have to say that.
I know. No,
well,
but
actually,
I remember growing up with because you homeschooled us too. So not only were you organized, you were had everything's labeled, and not just labeled, but labeled alphabetically.
Of course.
As a dyslexic growing up, that was an interesting concept to grasp quickly. But not just labeled, but order is definitely a big part of who you are.
Yeah. And
even though that order has shifted just through seasons of life and stuff we're doing, it's still a big, important aspect.
Right. Well, and I think
of that impacts your creativity too.
Well, so right. And so one of the things that I'm also good at, I think, in general, is focus, right? And so what I recognize is that we can't do everything that we want to do, and things can't always be perfect. But what's important is we focus on what's most important in a given time or given genre of our life, kind of thing. And so it's I vastly prefer to live with extremely organized house and everything, rooms and drawers and everything basically, but those taking care of those details do not build our business.
Right.
And so for that reason, it's okay to allow, and so, I've been able to relax around a lot of that. And of course, having kids and dogs helps. But bottom line is, when it comes to creating, there are some creators who will swear that to have, a chaotic and messy environment helps their creativity. And perhaps that is absolutely the case for you. If it is, then go for it. And I would just say, try a different way and see. Because one of the things that having a lot of clutter does is it really grabs up more attention units than we're aware.
It's so weird. Months ago, last year sometime, my closet fell up and the shelf system collapsed, and getting rid of stuff because of that, I quickly had to declutter my room session, and it's like it takes up this mental and energy bandwidth that you didn't even know it was taking up, because it's not like you consciously think about it. But then like sending stuff off to Goodwill, cleaning drawers out, clearing it out so that I could put the system back, or it could go back up and I could have a restored closet. It felt really good, and I didn't expect that.
Every time you
because I'm not like a super organized person. You would think, but I don't know. Look, I'm learning. But at the same time, I recognize the fact that I don't want to live in a chaotic mess.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting shift that I didn't necessarily expect would happen, because it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That freed up space I didn't know was being used.
Yeah, because like, so you'll get up from your chair and you'll go to the kitchen to get more coffee, but you've left the dishes there that could have gone with you. And so my mind always sees, well, you could have just taken it with you when you go, or when you end the day, at the end of the day, then straighten up the area where you were working rather than just leaving things piled. What I've noticed is that I'm the only one in the family that notices those things. However, but I'm the only one that notices those things that nobody else seems to notice, that they're leaving a trail behind. But it's interesting, because when that happened with your closets, like every time you went to your room, you came back and saying, oh, I just felt just like you walked into your room and just felt basically a breath of fresh air. You just felt like you have more breathing room. So it could be, and especially if you're feeling any kind of stress, cleaning out and organizing can be very therapeutic for clearing out. It's symbolic essentially for clearing out the recesses of our mind and our psyche. Doing spring cleaning emotionally, mentally, and physically can be very therapeutic relative to the clutter of the day. So your father, Coleman, my husband, recently started keeping track of his time like Devani and I do, using the Toggle app. And again, he was surprised to see how much there was switching back and forth between tasks, and a lot of times, especially having to do with mundane things like notifications. Every time there's a notification, if you leave it on, and I'm guilty of it too. Devani said, why don't you just turn notifications off? Well, how do you do that? So, she showed me how to turn notifications off so I don't get the email notifications on my computer or the Skype, etc. notifications when it is that you don't want them. And certainly Facebook notifications, those can be overwhelming if you're a part of a group, like ours. Every time somebody posts and you're getting notified.
And if you're in our community, we love when you post. We really do. Yeah. It's just, I'm sure you're well aware, because I'm sure many of you own groups or are part of a lot of different groups. It just pulls at your mental.
Yeah, you can. And so we've created, times within, again, rhythms for that. Yeah. It's like, okay, so we'll check those groups and those notifications during certain times of the day and hopefully not miss things. So there again, you have to, but every time there's a notification. So I was just in a conversation with Coleman a few minutes ago. We were going to be on a call, an investment call, and he was in the middle of leaving a voice message. A notification popped in on his computer, and he stuttered and lost track of where he was, and then he picked it back up. But it was like 20 seconds later. So it's sort of like, that was what we saw. What's unseen is the fact that there was even more like momentum, and because what we don't see are the thoughts that might have evaporated and disappeared because of that interruption. And not only that, but then just the fact, because we know that a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays in rest, and it requires more energy and effort to get a body at rest in motion. Similarly, it requires more energy and effort to get back on track. So all those interruptions or all the clutter throughout a given day, digital clutter actually loads our our psyche. There's this thing called, and I'm jumping around, but speaking of jumping around, and we wrote about it recently, we'll link to that, called decision fatigue. Yeah. There's this thing that's been proven that people go through decision fatigue, and by the end of the day, it's not just willpower. It has to do with literally, if they've had to make too many decisions by the end of the day, then they become, basically increasingly exhausted and less capable of making the right kind of good decisions. And
this is where habits come in. Continue.
Exactly. No. But to your point, that's the article that we wrote touches on that, and why it is that when you set habits that this is what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, then you don't have to make the decision about do I do it or do I not. Yeah. It's like Tony Robbins says, he says, put your running shoes next to the bed so that when you wake up in the morning, you do not have to think, am I going to go? You've got when you roll out of bed, your feet kind of go right to your shoes.
Literally hit the ground running.
Hit the ground
if you
running.
want to have a running habit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like create that system where you don't have to decide. Another
this is
one
like what we were talking about yesterday in the car. I've been struggling with editing and refining a habits article, and really making it something that's like worth the read, I guess. But we were talking, and I mentioned it in the car, and I was like, we have so many invisible infrastructures going on in our world that we're not necessarily always aware of, and habits, like consciously forming positive habits around creativity, around life, around structure, order, decluttering, whatever it is, work, it is creating a conscious invisible framework that you plug into so that you're not so pulled by everything.
Yeah.
Like a little notification goes in and it's like, all right, I'll take care of that when I do notifications.
That's a great connection. And because that ties in that ties in with a coffee break we did also previously. And that was the one about the chalice.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll link to that, but it's the concept that our habits create an invisible infrastructure that we can travel. And the metaphor we were using yesterday, your brother and I were driving in the car, and so there was the sky, and it's the concept of jet trails and how we can see where the planes, have been, the airliners have been, with the crisscrosses along the sky. They know where they're going. If you go on the airlines and you look at the in-flight magazines, and it shows you the map of all the pathways, the airline pathways, then that's basically the highways that those same airplanes, those same flights rather, fly those same pathways every time, every day. They know that. To them, it's like a highway, basically, because that's what, and so occasionally we can see it in the sky with what's left of their vapor. But what we can't see are the trails that are within the invisible infrastructure of our lives, and yet it exists, where those pathways are there waiting for us to resume traveling in that direction.
Yeah, and you mentioned a really great analogy, which I feel like I'm just saying the article here, but we'll say it anyway, and I'll write about it later. But you were talking about a home and how you turn on the light, and you have the light, and that's the moment, like this light, but you don't see the wires or the electricity going through the house, the framework for that, but it's there.
Yes.
And it's a very integral part of your life. And you flip the switch on, and all you see is the flip the switch, the lights on, flip the switch, the lights off.
Right.
But there's all this other stuff that happens that's been set up.
Right.
And that's really what decluttering helps you do. You declutter, and then you find like what is essential and what is part of the framework that you want. Yeah,
that's a good point, because otherwise it'd be a little bit like every time we turn on the light, we had to go through a little bit of a mini introduction to where the electricity is and where it's coming from and how it works. In other words, that would take longer to get to the light bulb moment, so to speak. And so when we can just go straight to the light by having our mind space clear, there's probably everyone, even city lovers, we live in the country, in the woods, and we love the open spaces and nature, but probably everyone can identify with the feeling of walking out into the fresh spring air and taking a deep breath, and looking at the sky and feeling the breeze and how wonderful that is. Well, to me, that's what decluttering does, is just it opens the space in which the soul, the psyche, can have a deep breath in a fresh air and exhale greater creativity.
And if we think about it, even people who quote love chaos, if you were to go into like a home design building where you go and buy furniture, they don't have these setups that are full of clutter. We're not drawn to that. We're drawn to, whether we're drawn to cozy or minimalistic or office space, whatever we're drawn to, we're not drawn to, oh, let me buy that desk because I love how you just had trash all over it, you know? And this is not to judge anybody for not being as organized. I'm certainly not nearly as organized as I would want and hope to be, but the point is that we're just kind of inherently drawn to cleanliness and
to space.
To space. And when you have space, it's so much easier to do things. Mentally.
It definitely declutters mentally. So, this is probably not the first time you're hearing it. And I know I've been on the receiving side of hearing and thinking, oh yeah, but I can handle it.
Right.
I can handle those notifications. We just have them pop up on our screen. If you heard it right now, and I saw who it was, and yes, I did trip because we forgot to turn notifications off. But if you try it, when it is that I come in and start my day creating with all the notifications off, and maybe a wonderful, very background light music soundtrack, so that even the sound of the phone or other people talking will not trip me up, it is amazing how much more effortless the creative flow is, and how much more I get done.
So
let's do that more often.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
You don't understand the heat behind this look, because I have been responsible for knocking her off track before. Yeah. Like, Mom, idea, or like, oh, I'm sorry you're busy, but like my idea is really important, Mom. Because like moms are really good at that.
No, I've done it to you too. Yeah. I've done it to you too.
Yeah, but the rest of us are better at ignoring you.
Yeah, that's true.
You're really bad at ignoring us sometimes.
That's true.
And so,
Mom's
like,
always
also,
mom.
and realizing too, like, honoring other people's time. We all mess up, we all interrupt people, but honoring other people's time, and then also setting your own boundaries around time and being like, look, me ignoring you isn't that I don't like you, it's nothing about you, it's me needing to do my work, and I need my time, and I need you to leave. And sometimes you just need to do that, whether you're a mom and that's really hard, or you're a boss, or you're a manager, whatever you are, in whatever context, you have to set those boundaries and also respect other people's boundaries.
Yeah, I can just say something like, can we have this conversation at noon?
Or can you write it down and remind me later?
Notice the snark there.
Yeah, you're nicer about it. You're nice.
You're good at the sass. Okay, guys, let's see, were we going to talk about email? Was this the one where we were going to talk about email notifications?
Probably.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. No, let me just get back to that really quickly, because actually we did start out talking about the member of our community. Yeah, it was all on purpose though. It was all on track. So I think, and let's bring it back closure to the originating topic, which was, and we've got an article on this, so we're not going to go through all the details here, but back to my OCD approach of organizing and files and all that, which by the way I learned as I was an employee and sales manager for Planters Lifesavers, used to be Planters Lifesavers in Nabisco for years, and so I learned the corporate style of doing things, and have come a long way to relaxing around that. That would include inbox. For those of us who've had email for years, and we used to basically save everything and put them in folders, all labeled and everything, just like we used to in the filing system, the physical filing system. The thing these days, that even though I still have some of those files, the only time now that I actually file something in a folder with a name is if it's something legal, something essential that I don't want to lose, or a topic whose name I may not know how to search. So for instance, if it's something you can search, if you're going to remember the title, the subject, or the person's name,
or has a really basic word like groceries or something,
right, then don't waste your time filing it, because you can search it, and searching things is far quicker than hunting the folder in your well-organized filing system these days, because the search functions are just phenomenal for pulling up all the options so quickly, even if the word is embedded somewhere within the body of the email. And so majority of the things these days when it comes to inbox, so this person that wrote to us, their email bounced back because their inbox was full. And so basically it was just a quick tip to her on how it is to quickly clear your inbox. And here's one of the tips, and that is that you Command A or Control A to select all of it, and then drag it to a secondary folder called Inbox 2. That's or whatever you decide to name it. Inbox Archives. Do the same thing for Sent Mail Archives. And then the trash, I just double delete. But you can do that, and then you don't have to worry about missing, losing, or sorting through. And now, some of us who come from the old system and wanting to be really organized cringe at the idea of having all those tons of emails unnecessarily in that filing system. If you don't get a lot of email and you have time to do that and you really want to go through that, then go for it. But most of them don't end up taking up that much space unless they're like sales marketing things with visuals in it.
Yeah.
And you can easily just put them in the archives, and now it's off the server. It's off your email host server, so it doesn't occupy the space that you have that's going to cause your emails to bounce.
I love how Gmail like automatically filters stuff. So they have the like social notification tab, the promotions tab, and the normal inbox, so that anything that's like newsletter gets stuffed in promotions, and so like everything in your inbox is just like from actual human beings, or whatever you decide, like, I want this newsletter in my actual inbox versus shoved off into the promotions tab.
Yeah, so Gmail's a good one for that.
Like
and it doesn't seem to have the same space limitations that some...
It does, but they have they're constantly like expanding their space with their Google. And
Right, they can.
Yeah.
Right. So. All right, well, let us know your tips. And if you found anything helpful, then let us know, please. Any thoughts that you have in general, helpful or not, feedback, we're always open to that. You can reach us, creators@icreatedaily.com.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.